Hey, welcome to Coffee and Pan Dulce. Alexa is on the fritz today. She's not playing our fantastic music.
She's taking a vacation yet?
She's taking a vacation.
Okay.
I mean,
Alexa,
she
play
went to the
Fedora.
beach and she just never came back. She just loves it there. You know, I heard there were a lot of sharks. So who knows? Who knows what's going on with Alexa? But welcome to our Wednesday morning show. Hope you're watching us today. I'd like to introduce our co-host, the entrepreneur of Casa Cano, and the star of our show, Christian Cano. Bless your heart, sir.
Thank you, thank you. And I brought Bless Your Heart.
Yay.
So we may have a sudden walk-on appearance if the spirit moves, right?
That's
Is
right.
That the case?
That's right, the spirit.
So I want to thank Barbara for being here this morning.
Good morning.
Barbara, tell us about yourself for just a few seconds.
I'm a healthcare advocate here in Charlotte, and my new mission right now is to help a family that has two people that are hoarders, and it's caused some very serious medical issues for the family. So I am dedicating 2 days a week to help them, and hopefully I can get them over this hurdle and on to better health.
Well, thank you. We'll ask a few more questions about that a little later. Christian, you want to say something about yourself? I am co-hosting today, as you know, so I'm going to be stealing his thunder, but he's going to be trying to interject whenever he can. So here's his first opportunity.
Hi everyone, I'm Christian Cano. I am sitting to the right today because I will be always right. I'm taking
He's taking the always right position.
our other co-host Ruth is at a graduation party for
Oh.
one of her young kids.
Okay, well, there's a
That's what
lot
she
of
said
those
here.
lately.
That's
Yes.
right. There's a lot of graduation going on, and that's a good thing. Moving them out of the school system and into the real world, I think, should always be celebrated. Where they can get their best education. Yes, Barbara, you are anxious.
I tutor two children from first grade to the first year of high school, and the parents said, nope, it's high school, they can wing it on their own. And I went to Katie's graduation last Thursday morning, and she's salutarian of her class.
Oh wow,
She had no idea.
wow.
Two sobbing parents sitting next to me, everybody, the whole family was just thrilled, and she's like, it's a very small charter school,
Yeah.
and she was troubled in the beginning of the year, and she came back, she only had one B, all the rest were A's, and I was like, yes.
Oh,
So
cool.
proud of her.
Well,
Excellent.
graduation, I can say as a parent, is a very emotional time,
Yeah.
and to see your kids do that. And I did click on a Facebook story the other day about a high school student in Laredo, Mexican, whose father couldn't be there, and she put her gown on, and she had her gown on, and she actually walked across the border in her gown.
Oh wow,
So-
what a story.
So
Yeah.
so that was very beautiful moment. And again, for those of us parents who have had children graduated, and not to mention nieces and nephews and ourselves,
Yeah.
Yes.
it,
I think
it's
it was a little
it,
while
it's a
ago,
very
but-
it's a very memorable.
It was still
memorable
exciting.
time.
Yes.
Yeah,
as I recall.
it's a closure and an opening at the
That's
same
right.
time. So I don't want to wax too much about graduations, but let's go ahead and have our morning sip and
Salute.
salute. And do you have anything on your coffee cup that you'd like to talk about?
Of course, my Horned Frogs, who did make it to the College World Series regional baseball championships, so I'm very excited about that. They just squeezed in. For those who follow college baseball, that's very, very exciting. So hopefully they'll make it to Omaha.
Okay.
But can I talk about my button?
Oh, and the
Oh,
buttons.
okay.
Yes, let's do
And-
coffee and buttons.
And so my button, it actually is Fannie Lou Hamer, and this button says I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I decided to wear that one today. So,
Great.
oh, and Medicare for all, by the way.
Great. So, Barbara, do you want to tell us about your green cup? Does this mean you're supporting the Green Party?
Actually, no. I'm still.
Hey, Alan.
Sorry, Ellen. Really sorry, Ellen.
Hey, I've seen
it
it
was
in a lot of
just
places.
first cup in line, so
Thank
that's
you.
what I did.
Okay.
But my button is Mom's Clean Air Force. I guess from my previous conversation about working with this family,
Mhm.
clean air is a major issue for them.
Yeah.
And it's just on the forefront of my mind, and it was like called out to me this morning. So
Great.
That's what I'm working on.
Thank you. My button this morning is, of course, my campaign button because I have to have my big politician ego hat on this whole season, all through the summer. And I'm also still carrying a torch for Julian Assange of WikiLeaks, who's in Belmarsh prison and is reportedly gravely ill.
Oh.
So there's some nastiness being performed by the UK and the US in keeping him under wraps, and I think we should all say an open prayer or a silent prayer for his health and security.
Absolutely.
So this isn't the way dissidents should be treated. So let's go on to our first topic, which is I was in Wilmington over the weekend.
Yeah, how was that?
And I'm working on my tan. I mean, I don't know if anybody can see, but
I'm
in the early stages of my tan. Yes.
I can sleep. I can see a tint of sun in your.
Yeah, well,
some
there you
vitamin
go.
D
Offset
there.
by
So
his
just
beautiful aqua shirt.
yes.
See, there you go.
You probably wore that on purpose.
There you
Like
go.
a 3
Yeah.
gallon.
Okay. All right.
So Wilmington was a beautiful spot, and the reason I was there was not only to work on my tan, but I went to the Libertarian Party state convention, which was an annual event, and we select some city in the state. Last year it was in Clemens, and the year before that it was in beautiful Lake Lure. But this year we stayed on the campus of UNC Wilmington, so we had to make cocktails in the dorm rooms, which was a challenge. But I rose to the challenge, and I was able to make. I was able to make very fine gin and tonics in the dorm rooms for the libertarians who imbibe.
What's that campus
Or
like?
is
That
that
must be a
redundant?
great campus.
Yeah, it is. It is nice. It's very spread out. The facilities were nice. The maintenance was nice. You know, sometimes in the past I've gone to conferences at colleges, and they're some of them are a bit run down. But UNC Wilmington is a fine facility, and I recommend it. So. So they treated us well. Again, the conference itself was just about the bylaws, and we don't need to go over that because party bylaws are kind of inside baseball and not really of general interest to people. It's just the rules that the parties follow to keep themselves going, to keep themselves to keep their rules straight in all the members' heads so that they know what to do. And there's a parliamentarian there, which is I call him a glorified hall monitor, right? To keep us all from punching one another during these sometimes fractious debates.
Question:
Sure.
I know at the Democratic State Executive Committee meeting, which will be, I think, I said it was this last weekend, but it's actually next weekend, I believe. They are this coming weekend when we have these conventions. That there is we do pass resolutions and proposals and the PLU, the Plan Organization, whatever. But many of our Democratic candidates, and it's one of the huge arguments I've had about our own party, is that as a party we pass these resolutions like Medicare for All, Dreamers, and all this kind of stuff, or that's where we stand on issues, but we don't always force our candidates to uphold those same resolutions. Do you all have any?
No,
we
we do have resolutions, and for example, the National Party last year there was a resolution to free political prisoner Ross Ulbricht, and so, but no candidate is bound by going out and promoting the freedom for Ross Ulbricht. I mean, I happen to do that, but it's not on my campaign page, and I've tweeted about it, but no candidate is bound by the resolutions of their party. I mean, candidates tend to be somewhat independent.
Sure.
So the and I don't. The only real issue during this bylaw session happened to be the issue of open primaries. So the party was kind of divided, but the argument that we should leave them open because it makes us work harder and bring more voters in and approach more voters, sort of have that voter touch numerous times throughout both the primary and the general election season. That argument really prevailed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So people who wanted to keep it closed because of risk of poaching, So let me step back. The risk of if you have a party
Mhm.
and you're a legal party and you set it up in a certain way and you've got bylaws and organizations and you interact with the state, other candidates, if you leave a vacuum, if you don't run enough candidates,
then
if you're not out there,
people will just run.
people will take advantage. People
Yeah.
will change their registration. So a Republican will change his registration as a Libertarian, and so this happens, and that we call it poaching. And so
Yes.
this happened last year, and so we have to be very careful about who we let on the ballot.
But no matter what you do, Jeff,
Yeah.
what your party does, you're always going to have that, because even within our own party, and the Republicans
Yes,
apparently
exactly.
almost
This
had that,
is
I guess.
this is a problem.
Because the Republicans had against in their primary, the 9th Congressional District primary, they had 10, 11.
Yeah.
But one of them they said was really a Democrat, which
That's
is why
right.
they wouldn't let that person attend.
That's right.
So I mean, there are people who do those things,
And
it's
that's
hard
just
to.
that's right. That's just a form of a form of political opportunism that a lot of people are going to take.
Mhm.
And so there's not much we can do about it. But again, I was swayed by the argument that it makes us work harder.
I agree.
It makes us work
Yeah.
harder for primary
Mhm.
voters, and making sure that we get out there and that we actually are talking to unaffiliated voters.
Mhm.
So just as a shout out, when I was there at the convention, I met 2 fans of coffee and pan dulce.
Oh,
yay!
So
Yay!
let's have a brief shout out to Matt Clemens.
Hey, Matt Clemens.
Thank you,
And
Matt.
also to Thomas Bivens.
Thomas Bivens.
Thank you.
Appreciate
More coffee?
you approaching me.
By the way,
And
these cookies
complimenting
are
us.
really good.
Oh yeah.
And I
Okay.
have to tell you, they're really healthy too.
Oh,
Can
are
you
they
believe
really?
it? Yeah,
How
Healthy
are they
cookies.
made with
That's an
certain?
oxymoron.
it is. But Art is a runner,
Oh,
and they
okay.
come from a runner's.
Mhm.
And I read the ingredients. I said, "This is in those cookies." They're
Mm.
like awesome.
These
He
are
makes
really
some
good.
really fantastic.
Mhm.
Another chocolate chip cookie that
Mm.
there's you never know that
Mhm.
there's no flour.
Mm. Oh, well then how?
Are they vegan?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh wow!
Great.
You couldn't even
Okay.
tell.
Yeah.
Now that you said that.
Well,
I'm joking.
No offense, Art.
I will try one later off camera.
That's
so you
right.
don't have to watch me chewing here.
Yeah.
In any case, I was pleased to find out that our show is
That's good.
appreciated by members of the Libertarian Party who get it through the Friends of the Libertarian Party Facebook page. They get announcements about it. So, were there any other questions about the convention? I'm trying to remember. It only lasted about a day and a half. We had 2 guest speakers. We had Mary Ruart, who's written a couple books, important books on regulation. It comes from a research and science background. She was interesting. But we also had a potential presidential candidate. He hasn't announced, and it's not clear whether he's going to announce, so I'm even ambivalent about mentioning his name, but he does such great work, and he's done such great work for many years. That's Jacob Hornberger at the Future of Freedom Foundation. And he's a strong anti-war advocate. He just wrote something the other day on repealing the Espionage Act. He's arranges conferences on the national security state. So he is rock solid on those issues, and he believes that libertarians should be even in the minority status, we should always be the party of principle. We should always be emphasizing our principles. So we can have a longer discussion about politicians who are out there hitting the road and have to talk to voters directly and have to hear voters' concerns. I would like to see him go out and be seasoned by that experience too.
That seems to be really hard for I'm not sure if you wouldn't even talk about that, but it seems to be really hard for people running for office now, because those of us who want to talk about issues deeply and intellectually, like I've said this before, we've done over the last decade or so, we have dumbed down voters so much that we have convinced candidates that voters' attention spans are so short, so don't get too deep into a conversation because you're going to lose them. So we have campaign manager, you have the strategist that just say as little as you can, and that's it. And I believe that's why people are so turned off about politics.
They're
so
not
now
hearing
that
anything, right?
they're not
right.
hearing anything.
Right.
So now that we have people who want to talk more in depth
That's
about
right.
issues, and I do find people taking the effort to say, tell me more about that.
Yes,
educate
you
me.
do meet plenty of voters,
But we still
who
have the
persist.
machines
Yes, that's right.
that want candidates to go out there and say, that's too much. I only want you to talk about as little as you can. And
That's right. So and we know as candidates that the difficulty is messaging and audience and understanding that. But if it really feels like your whole campaign is just selling a slightly different brand of yogurt,
Yeah.
it's not very satisfying for anybody. It's not satisfying for me or you. It's not satisfying for voters who would like to be challenged, and they'd like, instead of, we've had this discussion before about whether or not, voters are reacting to fear more than they are to, the attractive ideas of the candidate.
And on the reverse side, Jeff,
Yeah.
just as I have always said that Democrats vote because they're inspired and Republicans vote because they're afraid. So Trump tapped into the fear of many people, I think. There are many progressive Democrats that have been attracted to just a message of inspiration, but they haven't gone deep into that message. So I will have to, if we have to be fair, we have to be fair on both ends.
Yeah.
There are people who say, like for an example, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
It's great to be a candidate who just says, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Yay!
Yeah.
Let's give it to him. Yay!
Yeah.
And that's all you say.
Yeah.
But why are you sick and tired? I'm sick and tired because of this,
Yeah.
this, or this. And a lot of people don't want to go further
That's right.
than that.
That's
So,
right.
anyway.
So the frustration of being able
So
to
it's great to, when you said that person's maybe running for president, it's
Yeah.
great to have those individuals. My fear is that we don't have those conversations for candidates. It seems
That's
like.
right, and also the fear for most people in a large party like ours would be that, oh, he's very principled, and he's been writing all this stuff for many years, and he's written books, and he's very wonky. He knows his stuff. He's got such great command over the issues, and he's a great speaker. He's very powerful. Are voters going to hear? Are voters going to get that? Is he going to be able to go on CNN? Is the media going to even pay attention to him? Because it feels like he might not be able to make the transition from being a wonky fellow to a candidate, right? I mean, and this is a little bit of a problem, quite frankly, that I face. My campaign manager will say it. Jeff, you're just being too wonky. You're overthinking it. You just want to have a clear, clean, direct message to voters. Be open to what they're saying, right? So,
What do you think?
Barbara,
I don't want to comment on that.
I think that being different right now is a plus.
I agree.
I think we're bored to death
Yes.
of the same old yada, yada, yada from both parties.
Yep.
Let's talk to the other parties and find out what else is going on. And so if they're wonky, so what? Maybe that's
true.
new.
Because
yes.
I mean, I was going to say, Barb, sorry to interrupt you, but aren't we wonky in our real lives?
Yeah.
I mean,
That's right.
no one in their real lives at home talks to their family members in 30-second sound bites.
Right.
We don't say this, and the other person pause.
Or give them the 1 minute.
Exactly. I know we've got our new clock and our
That's
new
right.
this,
That's
but-
right. You'd be slapped around for not saying anything. Come on.
Exactly.
Just say, get serious.
Don't waste my
here.
time.
Yeah, don't waste my time on that stuff. Well, that's a good point, Barbara.
I'm tired of
That's right.
home and we just had a
Right.
conversation with friends about how happy we are not to be corporate people anymore and put your corporate hat away. And my friends are like, "Where's corporate, Barb?" I said, "Dead and buried." I'm. This is me.
Well,
I'm
let's
let's
toast to that because I'm on the same. I feel like I'm on the same train now.
Yeah.
So, so also,
Well, I've always been non-corporate, so I've just.
So I'm sure if Alan Smith of the Green Party were here, he would certainly be in agreement with that. So let's give a shout out to Alan because he'll be.
Hey, Alan.
Hey, Alan.
Hey, Alan.
We miss you, Alan.
So-
I've seen Alan on the road.
That's right.
I'm very impressed. Alan,
That's right.
I
He's
saw
been
him
out.
at Medicare for All events.
That's
right.
He's good.
So
He's
I'm
getting
very,
out there. That's great.
Yeah, that's good.
So let's move on to one of the other issues I was thinking about. I was just talking about the national security state, and this story came up over the last few days. One of the campaign issues that I had was talking about DHS and going back to this whole idea of fear and threat inflation. And so the threat inflation of whether it's human trafficking, the threat inflation of immigrants, right? So we really need to go after people who are illegal, and we have to give these ICE detainers to people
Yep.
to make, so this administrative agency allows forces the police to cooperate. But there's also this fear of voter fraud, and we know that just looking at the evidence, if you go to the Brennan Center, if you look at some of the research on this, it turns out there aren't really systematic voter groups engaged in voter fraud. All of the prosecutions and the evidence suggests that people, some 80-year-old person who said, "Oh, I forgot I had a conviction in Florida," or something like that.
Yeah.
So this fear of voter fraud and intrusion into our voter systems, I believe, and I think it's fairly clearly documented that over the last 2 years, since 2016, the DHS has wanted to provide cybersecurity services to states. Now, early on, North Carolina was actually pushing back on this, and other states were pushing back, saying, no, we don't see a lot of evidence that our systems have been intruded on and that anything has been changed, even though they were really promoting this and really hyping this story. So now what's happened is that this special briefing has gone to the Senate, but it's also gone apparently to our state board, because Josh Lawson, who just quit from the State Board of Elections staff. Last Friday was his last day. Hi, Josh, if you're watching. But he said that he saw it, and so I thought, well, wait a second. How can the staff of the board, see it, buy into it, buy into this idea of some other nation states are trying to intrude into our election system, and then say that the public can't see this? Okay, so
the voters,
so the question is, how much do you fear, nation states intruding in our election systems, and that obviously goes into the veracity of the Mueller report and whether or not that really happened, or whether we think this is again a tool of the security state that obviously to get more contracts, to sell cybersecurity services, to work through the FEC and work through the state boards, to basically take control over state voting systems. I would think that an intrepid lawyer would go in and say, does this create a problem between the federal government and the state governments? So let me just throw that open. Any thoughts on?
Well, former background for me is programming, and each state has separate systems. So
every state's responsible for
So you have a canned program by the feds that they want to put in. I'm just thinking, how does that work? And what's the ulterior motive? What are they trying to do? Take over?
That's
or
right.
Monitor what? And
that's
hopefully our Board of Elections in each state wake up and say, why are you doing this? Why are you forcing this on us?
That's right.
It doesn't seem like they're asking, it seems more like they're telling.
Right.
When I watched it, that's the impression I got.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I wondered why.
Right.
I think we're in such a muddy situation here in North Carolina because we have preached so long, or at least my party, or our party, the Democratic Party, has preached so long about voter suppression.
That's right.
Trying to keep voter ID, voter ID as a way of voter suppression, and all of that.
And don't forget gerrymandering.
Gerrymandering.
That's the very hot issue right now.
We have been preaching all of that, saying this is, we can't trust. And then, of course, there was this absentee ballot thing that came up.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we keep pushing that, but then on the same breath, we're saying the Russians are trying to do this.
Right.
It has confused people so much that people just don't understand what,
it's very confusing. Yeah, and I said
it's technical.
on the campaign trail, I think, I'm trying to remember where I said this, but I might have said it at the Black Political Caucus. I said, the Republicans think that Mexicans are intruding on our election, and the Democrats think Russians are intruding in our election, right? So each party has its fear
But
has its
Chinese
fear
also?
factor. That's well,
Participants?
well. If it turns out the Russians aren't, then I'm sure
China.
it will go to it will,
Okay.
it will
So
go to
option
China.
B is
Someone is intruding on something.
That's right. So we don't know who to believe
Yeah.
on these claims. We know, for example, like I said before, a look into the facts about actual voters
It's
doing
very
things
little.
is very little.
It's such a small, and the Democratic Party for many times
Yeah.
have we've been using that data. We've been saying the amount of people that have actually committed voter fraud, because that was the voter ID thing,
Right.
has been like so minuscule. It's been because of like something like you said.
That's right. It has been.
And now we're trying to tell, like this new election on the special election, the whole campaign is based upon we're protecting your voter rights, we're protecting.
Yeah.
It confuses people. You're like, okay, I understand. First you tell me there is no such thing.
Right.
And now you're telling me there's huge absentee ballot fraud.
Right.
So what is it?
Yeah. Well, obviously in the case of what happened in Bladen County,
Yeah.
it was actually a fairly small number of
Sure.
votes, but it was decisive because a third party candidate got 5,000 votes and totally beat the spread, so that a small number of votes between the two major parties became an issue of big contention.
I'm still, Jeff, I'm still waiting, and I can't wait till y'all's debates really start, which is probably what July, August, maybe.
Yeah.
I still can't wait for someone to ask the Democratic candidate, if you were so concerned about absentee balloting, which, if you were, and not just that person, but the party, as a Democratic Party, if you were so concerned about absentee balloting, why didn't you just at least campaign out there? Why didn't you tell these people, watch your absentee ballots, don't get conned, don't do this, and then if you were so concerned about it, why didn't you just ask for a recount?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
to
well,
me,
those are tough
questions.
Yeah, those are tough questions for for a very well funded campaign and a very professional campaign staff who's and it might just be they screwed up.
Or I didn't care about it.
Yeah, I didn't care.
I didn't care.
That's
all
fine.
they were focusing on was South Charlotte and Union County.
Or they expected to win.
Yeah.
I think they just took the others, and
Yeah.
I've said this before, they took all the other 6 counties for granted. They just assumed because they are majority Democrat that they were just going to vote for them. What's their choice? That was the same problem Hillary had.
I was going to say, it sounds familiar, right?
Hillary had the same argument. Who else are they going to vote for? That's the same problem we're having right now with 4 candidates.
Right.
I see it all the time on the social media fear. All they talk about is the Republican nominee and the Democratic nominee. They don't even talk about the Green Party or the Unitarian nominee.
Yeah.
Very few times do they talk about it. I mean, even in their own ads, they don't even mention you guys.
Yeah.
And they don't want to mention you guys because if they mention you guys, then people will say, well, hold on a second.
I don't know about this.
That's why I troll their Twitter and their Facebook feeds. We talked about this before as a strategy, but that's one of my devious plans to make contact with voters.
That's right. That's right.
So anyway, this issue is not going away, right? This issue is not going away, and it's gonna spin around within weeks, really, because of the Supreme Court decision.
Yeah, we should
on gerrymandering.
Should find out.
So there's going to be
a couple weeks, right? Yeah.
well, no later than the end of the month because their session ends, right? So probably.
What do you think's going to happen?
Well, I think they're gonna. I don't know. I honestly don't know. You know, the thing is, I've written some stuff about this, and it's only for internal to the party circulation. So when we do get it, we're going to look at it and kind of make our statement about it. My guess is that they will kick it back to the states because the federal governments have very limited jurisdiction over what states can do.
Yeah.
Which ties exactly into this point about the DHS using the quote nation state fear factor, whether it's Russia or China, intervening to take cell software. Is that benign? We don't know if that's benign. Are they going to be taking control of the VPNs? Where federal election.
Are they going to hack into our show? And,
So we don't know. But the question is, does the state legislature know? And does our Board of Elections know? Have they made a decision on it? We just don't know the answer. We know that we may be buying into this thing, And you know, if you're a radical libertarian, if you're a radical Republican, you know, you're going, wait a second, this is like you are stepping on my toes. You are violating my sovereignty. This is we're having a don't tread on me moment today. Okay. So
well, I think, what do you think is going to happen? Or do you have it?
I have no idea. I just from listening to my friends that are in other states, everybody is so focused on what is happening in North Carolina, and I'm just like, well, what do you think? And I said, I live here. I don't know.
I think there's a very strong possibility that it's going to be ruled because it's North Carolina and Maryland or Virginia or Wisconsin. Is it Wisconsin or there's two of
I think
our
it's
states.
Maryland.
Yeah. There's two of our states that are there, but it will impact a lot of us.
That's right.
And I believe that it is very likely it's going to be really close, that it's going to be ruled unconstitutional, and that, so to me, this is going to be a test of, is the North Carolina Democratic Party really concerned about fair voting? When I say this, when it gets kicked back, are we going to put a halt to the special election? And are we going to redraw the district and make the candidates run in the new districts? Or are they going to say, let's just move on with the new district? Because more than likely, if we redraw the district, the Democratic nominee currently will be running against Alma Adams. And if you're truly concerned about fair districts, and I think that's going to put the Democrats in an awkward situation, because I don't think the Democratic Party wants this to be overturned, even though they're fighting against gerrymandering. They don't really want it to be overturned because there's a lot of establishment people who will have to be running against each other in a lot of districts. And so the reason I say that is because you don't hear one. I have yet to hear one word from the Democratic nominee for the 9th Congressional District say that they think that the Supreme Court needs to overturn that person has not said anything. They've said things about gerrymandering, but they've never said we need to redraw this district. We need to I need to run in a new district. They haven't said that.
But don't you think that that is a general assumption that that's going to happen? I mean, you hear that out of other people's mouths saying, well, they're only going to be in there for a short time and then they're going to be all redrawn. I hear that a lot because I'm going to
I think that's probably what's going to happen. I think if it gets overturned, I think everything's going to stay still until 2020. And then the hope is that these people will be now incumbents, that they will, have an advantage because they will be incumbents. And I guess what I'm saying is that if our party was really concerned about gerrymandering, which there are many people in our party that are concerned about gerrymandering, there are many people that are voting that are concerned about gerrymandering, they would demand that all 4 of the candidates speak out and say, if this is ruled unconstitutional, we'll put a hold on the special election and we'll redraw the district. Because if it was unconstitutional for me to vote in a district that was wrong at that moment, it should be tomorrow as well.
Right. So that means that I would have been campaigning from February of last year through September. But if they postpone it, that means I will have been campaigning for 2 years for the same darn office.
Yes.
Oh, this is crazy.
Yes.
I'm praying that you're wrong. I'm praying that the election just goes through. But I understand your point. So it's true. Democrats have a stake in gerrymandering, and sometimes they, just like Republicans, they're a little two-faced. We want fairness, but there's a side of them that says we want fairness in order for us to get into the power. Because we know that this is a life and death struggle between the parties for power, and we know that 2020 is a census year. And it's a census year, so Democrats desperately want a majority in the state legislature. Because it's a key cycle every 10 years, because that's when the redrawing happens, right? So they are really hot to win this. And are they really hot to win this in the interest of fairness? I don't know, because I mean, I go out, I talked about this a couple weeks ago. I talked about this a couple weeks ago because the League of Women Voters has kind of an offshoot organization called Fair Districts NC, and I've gone out to a couple of their meetings, and they're basically showing people the.
Did I miss the meeting?
Well, no.
Wednesday?
It was out of town.
Oh.
It was in Belmont and Gastonia, and one of the most compelling things that they have to offer, I think, is simply the video of the Kraken pack, which is if you take 50 of one and 50 of another, and then you scramble them, then you can draw it so that you have, you've cracked the party out of power, and you pack the party that's out of power, and you distribute the majorities for the winning party. So even though the population might be 50-50, you can still do a 7-3.
Sure.
Right.
Which is what we have now.
That's right,
Sure.
and that's exactly the way they do it with very sophisticated voting data. Right. So one of the the points of the Fair Districts NC is to say we can't bring in extraneous data, which is that you've got people's address, you got their party affiliation, but you can't start bringing in demographic data, their voting history, their age, because people can model how you're going to vote, right?
Exactly.
And that's the sophistication of these models means that if the two parties are in power, the third parties will never be able to compete, and even marginalized independent candidates from the two parties will never be able to compete either. So I guess just to wrap this point up, we know that that we're looking forward to the Supreme Court decision and seeing how it affects the state, and it could throw everything into chaos. I mean, everything could just be chaos.
We need is more chaos.
We need more chaos. I'll drink to that.
Yeah, no more
chaos.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are just ready for the special election just to be over with. It's like going on. Now, granted, it's right around the corner. We they got 3 months. September 10th. So it's not very far. I have noticed, for an example, that the Democratic nominee has finally made a decision to actually hold an event for the Latinx community, and it was posted on the North Carolina Democratic Party Hispanic American Caucus site.
Muy bueno,
yes.
Dan McCready.
And so I'm glad that Dan McCready has finally made the decision to hold a meeting. It was done kind of. This is like one of those things that was done like very quietly. No one really knows about. It's going to be in Monroe, and whether he's going to answer questions or whether he's just going to give a little speech, no one knows about, and walk away. The good news is I think everyone should attend it if you're interested in asking him why he has avoided us for the last 3.5 years. Up until now, he's made a decision, just like he did with the LGBTQ voters as well. It's going to be at 1621 Wake Up Avenue, Monroe, on June the 10th at 6:30. So it gave people about 6 days notice to plan. And so it's one of those things that you keep saying. I see Dan McCready out there. From my perspective, I see him, but I see him like someone who's trying to get dressed really quickly for a prom, who they realize, I got to do this really quickly, and it's almost, it looks so desperate now.
It's a photo op with a taco, right?
Oh, jeez.
I wouldn't go that far, but I always say that
I'm more irreverent.
Yes, I try to be a half glass full kind of person.
That's right.
So I do know that candidate would not have had that event had we as in the Latinx community on social media and on this show and on other shows not been critical of him just completely ignoring us.
Right.
It would never have happened.
Politely beating him up, right?
Yes, and so polite. So this would never have happened. The same reason the only reason he attended the LGBTQ or wanted to get their endorsement was because of the backlash. He's never marched in Pride. He's never met with many communities. He still to this day has never attended a women's forum. It's been 2.5 years. He's never attended a women's candidate forum. So these are things that he says, I've been campaigning for 2.5 years. No, I don't know where, but but in saying fairness, Dan Bishop hasn't either.
Yeah.
So Dan Bishop has never held that I'm my understanding is
Right.
that Latinx, he's never going to meet with the LGBTQ
Right.
community.
And I always find
Yeah.
out about these events in retrospect. Like,
Yeah.
for example, on Memorial Day, he was at some event in Indian Trail, and had I known about it, I would have showed up to heckle him.
Because they don't really want you to attend.
They don't want
So
me
you
to
get the
attend,
picture.
yeah.
So I do appreciate the fact that the Democratic candidate is now taking these last 3 months to try to do as much as they can. I don't think it's enough.
Yeah,
We'll find out.
He'll run a decent campaign.
Yeah, right. But had he did it before,
Right.
then people would take it seriously.
Right.
It would be like, I don't know how to use this analogy, but it would be like going through a divorce, and then 2 weeks before the divorce, the person you're divorcing say, "Let's sit down and talk about this. The only reason you're doing it is because you're going to get killed in the divorce."
Yeah.
And so, in one breath, you want to take the olive leaf,
Yeah.
but the other breath, you want to say, "Where were you
Yeah.
2 years ago?"
Yeah.
So,
let's move on to another
Yes.
topic here.
and I can take it off my computer.
Because I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the news around Memorial Day, because in retrospect it appears to have been a little bit of fake news, and I thought this would give us a forum to talk about some of the news that we're seeing, and I get people on my Facebook page and my Twitter feed who are challenging me about some of the facts that I'm putting forward and some of the skepticism that I have about some of the news stories. And obviously I can't answer everybody on my Facebook forum, but I do try to send messages out to people, and especially if they're being civil and they've got genuine questions. And I actually put my phone number out there, so if people want to talk to me, that my phone number is right there on the Facebook page and in the Facebook thread. So if you want to see it, you can just call me and I'm happy to talk about it. You can also submit questions. Chris, tell them how they can submit questions to this show in the future.
To this show, if you have questions, you can send an email to Coffee and Pandusce. Or actually, it's Coffee Pandusce, COFFEE Pon PANDULCE
DULCE
at gmail.com. You
Yeah.
can instant message us on our Facebook page, but we actually have emails that you've never used.
Okay.
I'm
sorry.
Christian at coffeeandpandusce.com. That's Scott, Jeff at coffeeandpandusce.com.
Okay. I haven't seen that email yet. Sorry about that.
And Ruth has one at Ruth at coffeeandpandusce.com. We'll post that on our Facebook page.
Right, and you can reach me through my Facebook page and my website, and I'll try to make sure that I understand this channel for people who want to talk about some of the outrageous hair on fire comments that I make about stuff.
Can I just say I want to thank Lizette Cruz Walker and Julie Ann Guerrero for watching us today. Also Maria Trujillo. Hey, I think that is our Why Not Pizza lady. She owns Why Not Pizza.
Oh,
is watching us, and Paulette Naper Ennis, who is from Tennessee. Hey, Paulette, how are you? So thank y'all for watching us, and other people who are watching us as well.
So let's talk about this Memorial Day set of stories, and I was somewhat taken in by this, and that's the reason I want to bring it up, is because I in retrospect kind of fell for what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So there was leading up to Memorial Day, there were several op-eds and stories, a couple of which I read and I thought were very informative about the president and the president's pardon power, and the fact that he is commander-in-chief means that he cannot pardon war criminals, because that in theory makes him a war criminal, right? Because it's his job to make sure that anybody who commits war crimes is prosecuted, right? So that's the simple part. I got into more of this command theory and stuff like that while I was reading it, but that's the sort of the simple truth of it. So he did pardon a soldier whose name I can't recall right now for killing an unarmed Iraqi civilian, but that was, I think, earlier in the week, or maybe earlier in the month. So many of the stories that came out were about Trump's potentially pardoning other war criminals, and so the stories were really disturbing stories of what went on in Iraq and Afghanistan, and some of the horrible things that happened, innocents being killed, and you would never think that these guys who committed that would ever be pardoned by the presidents. They need to do their time. So the stories themselves were very abundant, right? There were, and I googled this morning just before I came over here to follow the news, and I was trying to figure out, well, how many of the pardons, because I was basically on vacation at the convention for a week, I didn't really follow up, but once I followed up, I realized there was really only that one pardon, and everything else was quite speculative.
Yeah.
So fake news?
So is it fake news, or is it just speculative clickbait trying to get people to hate Trump for things that he might do but didn't do, or things that he was considering?
What's the source? Do we know?
Chris is just busting at the seams here, trying to get into this story. So, Chris, please regale Byron.
I'll just say that I don't think that it takes a lot of anything fake to get people to hate Trump.
Okay.
People hate Trump.
Fair point.
So I don't think anything is done to. I can just say that Trump does a good enough job on his own to be disliked.
Right. So that's right. And we've had this discussion before. I don't actually like to listen to Trump.
Yes.
I like to pay attention to what he actually does. It's very hard because of stories like this and this whole mood and what we call, TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, but there's also Trump devotion syndrome where people are just like saying, "Hey, it's part of the plan," right?
But
it's part of the plan.
But I think that many of us who are not fans of Trump and not the presidency, but Trump himself, I think we are just kind of like sitting back wondering how far is a Trump supporter going to go? How long do you hang on to support it?
You just keep gently pushing to see where that line is.
Maybe that's one of the reasons that these stories keep coming out, is because we just continue to be amazed on how far. So
that's true, but then the question becomes: Is it fair? Is it really fair if you're going to the New York Times and you're going to CNN and you're going to Slate and Salon and Politico and The Hill, and you're reading these things about basically some kind of speculative fiction about what he might do and how terrible it would be if he actually did that, when it may be, and we talked about this earlier, it may be that, we know that there is such a thing as trial balloons, right? So stuff gets put out, it gets leaked on purpose by the staff, by the spokesman, and they put it out there, and so the media has a heads up, and so they can take a run with it, right?
But they do it on a holiday weekend. So how does that muddy the waters? Does it?
Well, this was running up to Memorial Day, right? This is the run up to Memorial Day.
About it, at least Sunday, I listened to
because there was a Republican Navy person who had come out and said, a congressperson who said that his own platoon had killed many individuals. I didn't read the article, so I shouldn't comment. But in other words, I think what he was saying was that to say that this person killed someone, that you may have to say it with a lot of individuals, because you could have inadvertently. I don't know if that was what he was trying to say, but
okay. So there is the factual issue that war crimes get committed, right? And then there is the I don't know if this is a theory or an untested theory, but I think it's true. I buy into the fact that he's commander in chief. He has no power to pardon war criminals once they've gone through military justice.
Okay,
right?
but you just said that he pardoned that one person.
I know, and that's the thing I don't understand.
So I guess to my argument are to those who are not fans of Trump. What I would say is we wouldn't be talking about this had he not done that. Had he not done that, we wouldn't be talking about this. So the reason we are talking about this is because he does things like that, which forces us to say, so we would
Right.
not be we would
That's
be
right.
talking
So,
about
but-
Mexico
but-
had he not called
That's right. But
people drug dealers
Right.
and this.
So this person might have been an exceptional case.
Yeah.
The speculation was there's maybe
Yeah.
a half a dozen.
Or
There's going to be
that,
several
or
of them.
the
Yeah.
Pandora's box for A, B,
Yeah.
C, D, and
That's-
E, which
that's right.
we definitely can't do.
But
Right,
that's
so-
but wouldn't that be if you have someone who tends to what many of us think not act rationally,
Yeah.
that is a concern because you don't know how crazy this person will continue to do things.
That's right. But the people with Trump devotion syndrome are saying, "Oh, that's all part of the plan to keep everybody discombobulated."
Okay.
And I don't think that's a very good strategy.
Yeah.
And clearly there's
Crisis management is not fun.
and people
Yeah.
like Bill Weld, who are running against Trump in the primary, clearly think that is not that's not an appropriate tone for a leader to take. So
Yeah.
so there are many people in the country who believe that is just the case about him and
Yeah.
the way that he behaves, which is why people hate him so much.
Yeah. Well.
So anyway, it turns out that it was mostly fake speculation, but it tapped into people's real fears
Sure.
about what he could potentially do. So we could, the thing is, we could talk about a lot of the other things where he does inspire real fear because he's doing real damage,
Like the trade war.
like the trade war and
Yeah.
and tariffs and
Not terra.
tariffs.
Tariffs.
Yeah. Well,
Hey, Tara.
Hey,
Hey,
Tara. The tariffs. I saw just before I went to Wilmington, before I tried to close myself out from the political world for a few days, I did see the announcement about the Mexican tariffs.
Yes.
And I have no idea what's going on there. I mean,
It's
5%, 10%
they're
on Mexican goods coming into
They're
the
meeting
United
tomorrow.
States.
The U.S. government and the Mexican government is meeting tomorrow to negotiate, whatever.
Yeah.
Terms, right.
So that had been scheduled already.
Yeah.
So once again, Trump does this
Right.
thing
Yeah.
to get people all excited, all of this, but I think he went too far on this issue
Yeah.
because he thinks he's this great negotiator, which he's not a great negotiator. and
I wouldn't want him negotiating for me.
well, and so now you have the Senate, the
Yeah.
Republican-led Senate, trying to possibly rein in on his ability to be able to do what he's said, and then Trump in London yesterday or the day before said that the Republican-led Senate would be foolish to stand up against him. It's like he says this stuff that's
Yeah.
so crazy.
Well, I can guarantee you that if avocado prices go up, there are going to be so many hipsters flooding
Yes.
the streets.
Well,
Save our toast.
one of the I think
Save our toast.
I think it's going to
Save our guacamole.
it's going to impact automobiles the strongest because even if your automobile is not built in Mexico, there's a lot of parts that can be so minute that you can only get in Mexico.
That's right.
And if that chain is disrupted, it's just going to be it's going to
Right,
impact
and
people.
this is the general point we were making about tariffs before, which is that there are complex
Yes.
production chains, supply chains around the world, and to just willy-nilly go in and say we're gonna jack this up 5, 10, 15, that just puts so much uncertainty into the market. That's
Jeff,
so disruptive.
But Jeff, this is like the hilarious stuff that I hear, which is why it's always so hard to take anything that Trump says seriously. So this morning I'm listening to, because they're talking about tomorrow's event, and one of his advisors was on the news today, and he was talking about how one of the reasons that Mexico doesn't really want the illegal immigration in America to stop because they profit very heavily from illegal immigration.
Right.
And so now they've switched the argument to say that the reason that Mexico is not helping America stop illegal, because Mexico is really profiting from people coming through the country and coming to America illegally. So there's no proof of that, and if that was the case, then why would Mexicans be coming here?
Yeah. So what the argument is that the cartels along the border are getting bounties.
That's
somehow feeding into
that's
the
insinuation. So
Yeah,
once again,
that doesn't make sense.
it's under this. It gives people the impression that it's a dog and whistle thing that, first of all, to say that, the only people that are coming here from Mexico are drug dealers and, and so forth and
Right.
whatever. And now that Mexico, is profiting, that Mexico wants to see this whatever. It's one of those things that it's so hard to take him seriously on issues that are important like that, because then he says those kind of things.
Right.
But he's not alone. I also fault our Democratic-led Congress for, even to this day, not passing any Dreamer legislation. Well, they did pass something this week, I think yesterday, to protect someone. But it's taken them so long, and they also have not passed any immigration reform. Now, the argument is, why pass it? Because we know it's going to die in the Senate.
Yeah.
But the point is, it should be there.
It should be there. It should be, yeah.
Right. So in our continuing conversations about immigration reform, we know that it's a complex problem, requires a requires a comprehensive solution, right? And if the two parties aren't working together, and then the two houses aren't working together, in theory, our form of government is supposed to kind of force them together to come do this. But we've got so much polarization, so much fake news, so much jockeying for position that this isn't really working very well.
I mean, does anybody, and well, Barbara, I guess you could probably answer this better, but does anyone do you see a light at the end of the tunnel with anything being passed in Congress?
No. Well, they keep talking about, well, we did this and we did this. Well, where is it?
Yeah.
Why aren't we reading it? Why aren't we hearing about it? The Congress is not working. Look at everything we've done. What?
That's the impression that I get from most people. I see that from Democrats, Republicans, and unaffiliated individuals, and that is the reason why.
I'm unaffiliated.
And that is
digging
quite
for.
honestly, that is the reason I think why the extremes, the Dan Bishops, the ALCs, the Bernie Sanders, the Donald Trumps, are getting elected because the centralists aren't doing anything.
Yeah.
The centralists, all the centralists are saying is, which it's a nice thing to say, but people are, that centralist message was a message that probably worked during Bill Clinton. You have to get,
it's tough to tone down the extremes. It's tough to tone down the fear. It's tough to have a sensible conversation. You know, like we just talked about the census coming up in 2020. So there's so much very vicious competition going on right now that it's kind of stunning. But we're starting to run out of time, and I wanted to give Barbara a minute to talk about her issue and let people know. We should have done this a little earlier when we had a little more time, but tell us a little bit about what you're doing with this family that you mentioned earlier.
I previously had a professional organizing business, and the common theme when I started, which is about 2005, helping people that were hoarders, because all the TV shows had it on, you know, and it's really an illness.
It is.
And it's a very serious illness, which I don't have anyone in my family, but we know people. And I decided this was going to be my niche. You get trained to help them because it can be OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. A lot of people that have a bipolar disorder, their minds don't work logically, so organizing for them and keeping things, and that's where I focused. And the reason why I wanted to go back and help this family, I got attached to them. I worked with them for 2 years to sell their home here in Charlotte, and they were moving somewhere else.
So just to be clear, the term hoarder just means someone who's pulling in their stuff and not able to get rid of it, right? They're kind of pack
absolutely
rats.
true. And you can walk into some rooms and it's piled all the way to the ceiling.
I had a landlady who was like that, kept a whole apartment.
I've got a
Or have
family
you
that
ever
was like
walked
that,
into in business land? I was shocked when I worked for DuPont. I had to go see one of the lawyers, and I walked into his office, and my whole body just went like this, because all around the walls were just like piles, but he knew where everything was. I don't know how you do that.
So is that considered a hoarder?
Yes.
And is this actually in the physician's desk reference? Is this
It
is
would be under
is this a
certain
psychological disorder?
categories of, like I said, obsessive compulsive disorder, bipolar disorder, or some clinically depressed people.
I got it.
And
Yeah.
it's
Mm-hmm.
under those terms, and
Right.
they deal with it with medication and
Okay.
things, but to get to know people like that, and they're very educated people, very
Yeah.
educated people. I love them to death, and the pain they go through
Yeah.
to just get rid of little things that
I'm.
blew my mind.
You know, I have to
Yeah.
say that I think I suffer a little bit from this
I
myself.
think everybody suffers
Yeah.
a little bit.
Oh,
I do.
of course you do.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
when my husband
Yeah.
died,
Mhm.
there were things I would not touch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're like, months later, like, why didn't I do this then? But
yeah.
you need the healing, you need, but
It's
for
very
them,
tough,
it isn't a crisis event, it's an
Mhm.
everyday event for
Mhm.
them.
yeah.
And trying to get them somewhere, got to agree that you can't live like this anymore,
Yeah.
because it's impacting their health.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And their kids are out of the
Mhm.
house, and when the husband said to me, I'm tired of this, I
Mhm.
about fell down, because
Yeah.
we fought.
Yeah.
I just want
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
here's a box,
Yeah.
go through it, and the next time I come, can it be empty?
Mhm.
It wasn't empty, it was fuller, and I'm like, oh. Or
Yeah.
you get an area cleaned out,
Mhm.
and you come back and it's full, and I'm like, where did all this stuff come from? You have to stop buying things,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or don't go to yard sales.
Mhm.
Or repackaged stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But to have the consensus from both of them that
Mhm.
they want to change their lives, I
Mhm.
said, I'm in. I know
Wow.
you really well.
Huh.
I love you like you're my family,
Yeah.
and I want to help you. But I know it's not going to be easy. And when the husband said to me, we should have listened to you when we left Charlotte, because there's no way 3,500 square foot full of stuff is going to go in an 1,800
Yeah.
square
Yeah.
foot home. It just isn't going to happen. And things were ruined because
Mhm.
they had nowhere to put it inside, so they were covering stuff
Yeah.
with
Oh my
plastic.
goodness.
You know,
Yeah.
it's sad.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's a
where does Norm
yeah.
go?
Yeah.
And it's going to be different for each of them. But it's amazing how they coexist together.
Mhm.
They get along great. They have a marvelous sense of humor. They're really, really nice people. And my heart breaks for them, and I want to help them. And this is my new thing now. So
I
that's what I'm
admire
going to do.
I admire people who can really sort of purge everything that they've had before.
I can't.
I mean, I can't either. That's why I
can't.
admire people who have the gumption to say, I'm going to
Yeah.
go minimal. I really need to get rid of this stuff. I've got too many things that I've got attachment to too. So,
But
That-
so
there's,
this is
we
this is
could
a
do-
fascinating.
We could do
program,
like a
yeah.
whole show on that.
Yeah.
there are
I mean,
yeah.
there are two
because-
children
Yeah.
are millennials, and they're like, why do you need all this crap? And
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
you dare try to give it to us, because we
Yeah.
don't want
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm like, all right, we're in this room.
Yeah,
Where is all this stuff going to go?
that's
And
fascinating.
you have nowhere to move it because the whole house is full.
Mm.
It's sad.
So thank you for
So
that.
if I'm a
Barbara.
little wild the next time you see
Yeah.
me, let's see.
Well, we're a little
Well,
over time,
we're
but
in
let's
motion.
read our amendment. We're on amendment that doesn't get talked about a lot. I think it's 23, which is on page 31. So the 23rd Amendment was ratified on March 29th. And I'm not sure I understand the 23rd Amendment from 1961.
Want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead and read that. Thank you.
23rd Amendment.
Okay. The district constituting the seat of government of the United States shall appoint in such manner as the Congress may direct. Well, that was perfectly clear. A number of electors of president and vice president equal to the whole number of senators and representatives in Congress to which the district would be entitled if it were a state, but in no event more than the least populous state. They shall be in addition to those appointed by the state, but they shall be considered for the purpose of the election of the president and the vice president to be electors appointed by the state, and they shall meet in the district and perform such duties as provided by the 12th article of amendment. The Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation.
So
I mean-
this is Just the number of electors aligning up with the number of Congress and Senate.
Right.
Jeff, let me show you how
Sure.
great of an actor I am.
Sure.
I don't have my cheaters on, and I sat here like as if though I was listening to it.
You
I could
are
not
brilliant.
see. I could not see a word of this.
You
and I
have
was going
You have a future in Hollywood.
and radio.
So we're wrapping it
What
up.
is it, you got a face for radio?
Thank you. Let's. Can we tell Pandora to play some?
Alexa,
nice
play
music?
Pandora.
Yeah. So let's talk about where we're going to be the next few days.
Loud.
Barbara, are you going to be anywhere interesting in the next few
I
days?
will actually be in Asheville over the weekend for
Very nice.
a run. My boyfriend is a marathon runner.
Wow.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I may be
Asheville's awesome.
Well, talk about rain. So
Yeah.
these people run in the rain.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So-
I'll have my umbrella. And
Well,
be cheering.
I've got a special guest coming to town, which is the vice chair of the Libertarian Party of the National Party, who lives in New York and is thinking about moving to Charlotte. And,
Oh, wow.
and he's Alex Merced. So Libertarian Party is going to have a gathering at the Foxcroft Wine Shop in South Park
Oh wow.
on Saturday from 5 to 7, and then you can meet Alex Merced, the vice chair. So.
I'm sure I've got things to do. There's a lot of fundraisers this week for people who are running for city council, so I'll be attending those. Democrats who are running for city council. Also, this weekend is the Moms of an Action Wear Orange weekend. I think there's an event Saturday or Sunday, one of those days, for Moms of an Action to wear orange. Next Saturday, the 15th, is the NAACP and the March for Our Lives event in Raleigh, and I forgot to post that on our page last week after Cade Lee spoke with us, and I'll be doing that today. So that's what I'll be doing, and I think that's it for me. There's a lot of things I'm sure
Okay.
going on.
Anyway, thanks very much for watching.
Oh, keep talking. I have to.
We're just going to keep talking here while everything gets shut down. But the National Libertarian Party, you can follow them at LP National, and Alex Merced is won a very close election last year, and he's got a lot of interesting things to say about the party. So please RSVP if that's an event that you would like to attend.